Unstoppable in our leadership. So I'm going to give you a couple of keys today. Here's the first one. You got to be willing to face your fear and risk the unknown. Face your fear and risk the unknown. I'm going to give you more details in a minute, but I just want to kind of cover the big gamut here. Second thing is you have to master self-awareness. You got to master self-awareness. The vast majority of people in this industry are walking around with their head in the clouds and they have no self-awareness, right? They're unconscious. Next, we got to be persistent until you succeed. That means you don't quit. You refuse to lose. You won't let yourself stop until you get where you want to go. And finally, we're going to be decisive. You're going to take decisive action. And I'm going to give you a rule. It's called the 24-hour rule. Actually, the first time I was exposed to this was in Think and Grow Rich. You guys heard of that book? Been around a long time? And one of the things that Napoleon Hill discovered when he interviewed all of these millionaires is they played by this rule. They played by the 24-hour rule. So once they were exposed to a new concept, they forced themselves. You must take action within 24 hours. And you know why? Because if you don't make yourself take action in 24 hours, self-sabotage kicks in, doesn't it? Yep. Right? All the things that happen is that you begin to postpone and set things aside. I want to help you move today into decisive action. Got it? All right, so let's take it one at a time. Unstoppable leaders face their fear. So here's the neuroscience behind fear, and specifically a woman's mind. So what you'll see is there's a small red spot that represents the amygdala. It sits at the base of the brain. Now, when this amygdala fires off, it literally tells your brain that you are in danger, that you could die. Now, this was originally created for survival, right? And it used to be that it was all about like saber-toothed tigers. And so we had to know when we needed to run. But the truth is, we have no tigers anymore, but the amygdala doesn't know that, and so the amygdala keeps firing off. Anytime you are under personal threat, that means if you have a fear of rejection, right, you won't pick the phone up because your amygdala says, you could die if they say no. I know, it sounds silly, but it's happening, isn't it? Right? Okay? So here's really interesting things. Guys are wired to go into fight mode. You know what that means? They move towards energy. So when they are triggered, they move towards. When women are triggered, we tend to either run away or we freeze and play dead. Got it? So fight, flight, freeze. Those are the three choices. Now, in this industry, when you bump up against any kind of personal threat, when you go into fight mode, in other words, you move towards the threat, something really exciting happens, is that you actually gain power, right? You gain energy because you're moving towards it. When you move away from energy or you freeze, what happens is that the brain begins to record how you are responding to fear, and it becomes a habit. Second time through, you got a habit. You guys got it? All right, so here's the thing about fight, flight, freeze. I want to give you an example. Here's what guys do. Let me back it up for a minute. Your brain is very busy all the time. Women's brains think about 85,000 thoughts a day. 85,000 thoughts a day. Guys' brains think what? One? It's got to be two because you got to include food. Sometimes. No, here's the thing. Guys think about 65,000 thoughts a day. So does that make us smarter? Yep. No. What it means is, here, let me show you. Women's brains think thoughts in rapid succession. Thought, 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 thought. Make sense? Okay? Guys actually have a gap between the thoughts. So they have a thought, and then a gap. And then another thought. Now, right? So here's what's really interesting about the gap. I'm not making fun of guys, I'm just telling you how it is. In fact, that gap does amazing things for them. It allows them to move into action without thought happening, right? So here's what happens for women. Women have a thought, then they have the next thought, and the next thought, and the next thought, and notice what's happening is every thought escalates. So when you have a thought like, my daughter is 5 seconds late from her date, the next thought is, something must be wrong. And the next one is, why wouldn't she call? She can't get her phone. She's been in an accident. She's dead in a ditch. And all of that happens like in 2.5 seconds. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And your husband is looking at you like, what the heck? You're just making stuff up. Right?
It's so nice.
Because he's got that gap, and when he's in the gap, he can actually shift into another thought. Okay? Have you ever seen a war movie like Braveheart, right? You got all these guys that are getting ready to go to war, and the general's running up and down going, come on guys, come on, we can take them, we can take them. And you're looking out into the battlefield and you know you're gonna die, you're outnumbered, right? It's a killing field. But it doesn't matter, because what do guys do? They go, charge! They all start screaming, and they race into the fray. Yeah? Of course, they die, but they run. So I want you to imagine what would happen if the whole thing were women. And the general would be running up and down going, come on, ladies. We gotta go. We gotta save our menfolk and our children. Let's get them out there. Let's do it. All right, and he'd be trying to rev everybody to frenzy, and women would be standing back there going, you know, I just had my nails done, and I'm a little bloated today. It's really not a great valley anyway. There's other choices. Right? So what happens is that gap actually allows men to run into the fray. And what's interesting, there's a lot of women that are wired the same way. So let me just say this. It's not really a male-female thing. It's a continuum. And based on where you stand on the continuum, you might be the woman that does exactly that. You are able, even when you feel fear, to move anyway. Can you feel that? Okay? So it doesn't matter, let me just say this, it doesn't matter what your mechanism is. Whether you're the one that runs, you're the one that, and by the way, you're not a runner because you're here. I know you're not a runner. But I bet you've recruited runners. Have you recruited people who bought a kit and it shows up and they never even talk to you, they just disappear? Yeah. Yeah. That means you recruited a quitter, you recruited a runner. That person got scared, and instead of knowing how to deal with their fear, they're out of here. Make sense? Yeah. Okay? A lot of you in here may have the freeze syndrome. And what that means is that when things get a little tight, get a little scary, what you do is you go into freeze mode. So it's kind of like you say things like, I'm stuck. I know what I do, but I'm not doing it. I know what I need to be doing, but I'm not doing it, right? I'm stuck. I hit a plateau. What a nice way to say, right? I'm frozen. You guys got it? Okay? So, what are we going to do? We got to find a way to move past our fear, even though we're feeling it. You guys get it? So let me ask you a question. How about a volunteer? Who in the audience is frozen by fear, and you would love to do something today that radically changes that? Radically changes that. Okay, we'll take you in front. Okay, and over here, okay, waving the arm, you gotta be you, come on up. See, you got it when you volunteer like that. You gotta do it. All right, so I got two people. Come on up on stage. Good, and do we have a microphone? It'd be great to know who we got. Excellent, excellent. So we'll introduce them in just a minute, but before we do that, we're gonna grab a mic so they can say a few words. Let me tell you what we're gonna be doing.